Hi, everybody. This is the Baseball Hype, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the people's champion. Your host, We're back here at the Baseball Hype, too, talking about all different kinds of things. I love sort of goofing on the media because they swing from one end to the other end. And when it comes to the New York Mets, they always have a mantra. They always attack the Mets. The Mets never do anything right. And even when they do something right, they do it wrong. And this is just another example of that. But before we get into this video, of course, subscribe. Let me know what you think about it in the comment section. People have been loving me goofing on them because they are really such interesting characters. But let me reach from Odyssey.com again from the insane asylum known as WFAN. Headline: Gio, which is Greg Giannotti, just isn't feeling the Mets retiring Doc Gooden's and Darryl Strawberry's numbers, especially the timing of the announcement. Even when the Mets do it right, they do it wrong. Every time. Call Gio Mr. Cynical. No, really, he said you could, but no, he's more of a mental case. This is a guy that has admitted to having what he calls mental health issues. Back in the day, they were mental problems. Mental problem sounds more of a negative. But on Friday's show, he had to wonder, would the Mets have announced plans to retire Doc Gooden and Darryl Strawberry's numbers this week if they were a first-place team? I would think they probably would, Greg. As you know, he's one of he's the co-host. He's really the puppet of his partner, Norman, also known as Boomer Esiason. And he's also a puppet of, again, Barstool Sports and Dave Portnoy, the guy that wanted to buy the Mets before Steve Cohen bought him. Never forget that. Quote, absolutely, Jerry Recco immediately replied. I think this is Steve Cohen, the fan. Before he came in, they had 4 retired numbers, and these will be 8 and 9. He's doing what the fans want. Okay. They always do the good cop, bad cop, especially in the morning. Right now, Jerry's playing the good cop. Greg is skeptical because the Mets didn't announce any retirements last year, but their last one, Keith Hernandez, was announced after a down season as well. Oh boy. Quote. Now I wonder if Greg was doing this, doing one of his impressions. Because he loves doing these impressions. That's really what he's known for, doing impressions of different hosts on the fan. Quote, this year they had one of the most embarrassing years in history, and they're going to retire 2 guys next year to get some positive pub. Greg asked. It's like, look at the shiny object over here while the building is burning down. That's just how I feel. Well, Greg, you're nuts. Greg, you're crazy. Because I believe they do this voting prior to the season. The committee sits down with Gary Cohen, Howie Rose, and a couple others, and they decide on this before the season. So, Greg, you should understand. You should have an idea of what's going on with the Mets. In terms of what's going on in the back. If I know this, you should know this. You're the professional. Don't you know that they decide on this before the season? If they were battling the Braves, again, in the playoff hunt, Greg thinks the focus would have been on the field and not in the marketing department looking for some good feeling. Well, what's wrong with feeling good? What's wrong with this? Nothing. Quote, the reason I like Keith is because he's been so involved, twofold. Leader on the 86 Mets, who won a title, and now almost 20 years now on SNY, Greg said. He means so much to the Mets fans, but as great as Darryl and Doc were, they're not legendary players for the entirety of their Mets careers. What is he talking about? I mean, Keith didn't play his whole career with the Mets. And most players haven't. There's only been 2 guys that really have note that have played their entire career with the Mets. So Darryl and Doc deserve it, and what's the problem? Jerry agrees. They should have been better. But thinks the Mets fans wanted this, but Gio Mets fans just isn't feeling it. And he's supposedly a Mets fan. But he's really more of an anti-Met fan. As long as CBS is paying him, he's anti-Met. Quote, you could be in the Mets Hall of Fame, top of mind, and talking about Mets history without getting a number retired, Greg said. A few special guys get their number retired. And I don't think Doc and Darryl are those guys. Who cares what they did off the field? These guys were Doc Gooden was one of the biggest names. He was the biggest pitcher in baseball for 2-3 years. They won a World Series with him. He won a Cy Young. He won a Rookie of the Year Darryl, the same thing, won Rookie of the Year. Should have won the MVP in 1988. That's not Darryl's fault that he didn't win in 1988, by the way. It was a ridiculous vote of giving it to Kirk Gibson. But these guys had historic careers here with the Mets. They are memorable for all those reasons. Doc is the second greatest pitcher in Met history. Darryl Strawberry is the greatest home run history currently in the history of this team. So why wouldn't you retire them? Why? Because Greg doesn't feel it? Greg doesn't want it? You know, just because these guys aren't involved in the game, that's a reason for them not to get it? What's up with this guy? He really does have mental health issues, really. I mean, lighten up, dude. This guy is very negative. Very negative about his own team. He's a Mets fan, right? I don't even know. I couldn't tell you. The way he talks. He's trying to be fair. Attacking the Mets for retiring numbers. What about the 90 million numbers that the Yankees have retired? Did Billy Martin really deserve it? No. Won one championship as a manager. He got it because he was Steinbrenner loved him so much. I guess he kind of felt bad for firing him all the time. But here we got two great players that were on the Mets, notable players, part of that pantheon, quote unquote, that Mount Rushmore of great Mets, and they don't deserve it. The hell yes, they deserve it. And obviously the next guy that Gio will complain about is Gary Carter. Oh, Gary, he didn't play his entire career with the Mets. He was an expo. He'll complain about that. He might complain about David Wright. He wasn't a Hall of Famer. He shouldn't get his number retired. He'll probably complain about Beltran. Oh, he took a strike and a bat. That's what they do with these anti-Met fans, WFN, or the nervous hospital, as I like to call it. Well, you let me know what you think about this video. Of course, please subscribe to the Baseball Hut too. Thank you, and I'll see you later.